Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. And today is going to be another ASBO fairy tale, and it's called The Golden Goose Lout. When a young offender finds a goose with golden feathers, he becomes rich beyond his wildest dreams. Will he spend his feathers wisely? And will he get the magic amulet tag off his ankle? A long, long time ago there was a good-natured couple who had 3 sons, the youngest of whom was called Divis. While Divis's brothers were handsome and popular, Divis was an ill-behaved surly youth who was banned from the marketplace for frequently falling foul of the king's guards. In an attempt to control the wayward youth, the guards affixed a magic amulet to his ankle to alert them when Divis was away from the cottage after sundown, which put Divis in a very sorry way. One day the boy's mother sent her eldest son into the forest to chop wood and thus earn his keep. Before he went she gave him a steaming bag of fish and chips and a 6-pack of debonair strong lager, in order that he might not suffer from hunger or thirst. When he entered the forest he met a little grey-haired old man who said, "Do give me a chip out of your steaming bag, and let me have a draught of your extra strong lager, for I have been living off cat food since my gas bill went up." But the youth answered, "If I give you my chips and lager, I shall have none for myself. Be off with you." And he left the little old man standing empty-handed and carried on with his work. But as the eldest son began to chop down the tree in front of him, he made a poor stroke. The axe cut him so deeply in his knee that he had to go to hospital and have it stitched up, whereupon he expired of MRSA 3 weeks later. Following the death of their eldest son, the couple sent their second son into the forest. To send him on his way, his mother gave him a vast kebab with all the trimmings and a bottle of the finest bling grape sparkling wine. He had been in the forest for only a few minutes when the little old grey-haired man appeared and asked him for a bit of kebab and a drink of bling grape. But the second son also refused the old man and continued cutting wood. However, when he had made a few strokes, he missed the tree completely and cut himself in the leg. Although he managed to crawl home, he later expired of apoplexy when he sued the forest owners, only to have the compensation lawyer take the whole lot in fees. Seeing an opportunity to escape the confines of his parents' house, Divis said, "Father, let me go and cut wood." But his father refused, saying, "Your brothers have hurt themselves already. You understand nothing of cutting wood, and the king's guards will only end up bringing you home anyway." But Divis implored his father at length, until at last he said, "Go then, but don't come crying to me when you lose a foot." His mother gave him a bag of grot-marked own brand plain crisps and a single can of grot-marked lager, which was only 2% alcohol. When Divis arrived at the forest, the little old man met him and said, "Give me a crisp and I'll drink out of that can, for I'm so hungry and thirsty." Divis answered, "Okay, but shut up and hold my leg up against this tree. I'm getting this magic amulet off my ankle once and for all." With the little grey-haired old man holding his leg up, Divis took an almighty swing at the magic amulet. But his first stroke was badly misjudged, and almost took his foot off, just like his father had warned, which drove him into a mighty rage. He swung the axe at the tree as hard as he could, and in his rage he chopped it down in one swing. When the tree fell, there was a goose sitting in the roots, with feathers of pure gold. Divis stared at the goose for some time. Then he handed the old man the grot-marked lager and the crisps, picked up the goose and headed for the inn in town. At the door of the inn was a burly man-at-arms who stood threateningly in Divis's way. "You shall not enter this inn, Divis," he said. "You're an ill-mannered youth, and only last week you were caught trying to sell chalk as fairy dust in here." But Divis plucked a feather from the golden goose and placed it in the man-at-arms' pocket, which made him step to one side and wish Divis a fine evening. Before long, quite a crowd had gathered around the golden goose inside the inn, and Divis treated them all liberally to debonair strong lager and bling grape sparkling wine for the ladies, all bought with the plentiful golden feathers. Later in the evening he purchased 4 ounces of fairy dust, and was about to proposition 2 of the serving wenches to accompany him upstairs, when the king's guards came into the inn and marched Divis back home, as he was out well past his curfew. News swiftly spread of Divis's good fortune, offending many of the town's richer citizens, who were disgusted by his antics with the golden goose, which he flaunted despite his curfew and amulet tag. A picture was painted of Divis holding the goose in one hand and a bottle of bling grape in the other, and the town crier called him the Goose Lout and repeated stories of his past misdeeds in the town marketplace. However, Divis was not hurt by such stories. In fact, he secretly revelled in them, and he went into the town's costliest jeweller's, where he had the magic amulet on his ankle inlaid with diamonds and rubies. Then he went to the town's most prestigious horse and cart dealership, where he handed over several goose feathers for a carriage with silver wheel spokes, drawn by a team of fine stallions. He drove his carriage to the most exclusive village in the kingdom, where he bought a castle with its own moat and apple orchard, and solid gold lavatory. He was the happiest man in the world. Barely a week later, though, Divis was walking through the grounds of his castle when he found himself unhappy. "Even this sublime, beautiful orchard cannot make me content," he said to himself. "I know what I'll do. I'll tear it all up and turn it into a carriage racing track." He pulled more feathers from the goose and paid some workmen to construct him the most lavish race track ever built, complete with hot dog stand and 24-hour inn. Divis already had a great many new friends, thanks to his newfound fortune, and now they flocked from near and far to drive his carriages and drink his debonair strong lager. I'm sorry, my mouth's not working today. And snort his fairy dust, which was getting through to the tune of 5 golden feathers worth a week. The villagers complained terribly about the noise of the carriage races, which raised much dust, disturbed the livestock, and often carried on until the church clock struck 4 times in the early morning. Town criers from up and down the kingdom now sang the exploits of Divis the Goose Lout, good God, who was parading through town every day, wearing much gold and raising his middle finger to all who saw him. Many were the times he was called before the magistrate for his unruly behaviour, and he was even sent to the king's dungeon for a while for threatening some of the townspeople with a pitchfork at a wedding feast. Yet, while he had the golden goose, nothing would persuade him to change his ways, as the golden feathers brought him everything he could possibly wish for. At one point he boasted of lying with close to 1,000 milkmaids, and spending tens of feathers on fairy dust in a single day. One day Divis went to buy some lions to put in the garden of his castle. When he took the goose out of his pocket, he found that he had pulled out every last golden feather, and went home utterly dismayed and without his lions. Soon creditors began to call at Divis's castle gates for the feathers he owed them, and bailiffs came and took away his carriages. The town criers exulted in the news, and in no time the story that Divis had spent all of his golden feathers was the talk of the land. He sold his goose for just a few pennies to a farmer who made soup from it, and he had to chip the diamonds and rubies out of his magic amulet just to afford a few last grams of fairy dust. Before long he was taken to the king's dungeons for failing to pay his debts. Divis had a terrible time in the dungeon, and when he was released after many months, he returned home to his parents' humble cottage, where his mother laughed at him, and his father set him to work tidying out the garage and sweeping up leaves in the garden. As Divis scraped the leaves into a pile and then threw them on the bonfire, it began to rain, and his prematurely receding hair stuck in damp clumps to the side of his head. "This will teach you to be more humble in the future," laughed his father. Divis flew into a rage and began to strike at the bonfire with his rake, while his parents laughed and laughed. They laughed so loudly that the neighbours came outside and joined them, mocking the spectacle of the sodden Divis, humbled and thrashing at a pile of leaves and branches in his humiliation. But just then, in the very depths of his despair, Divis spotted a golden hedgehog at the bottom of the bonfire. "Not yet, Dad," he said, with a grin slowly spreading across his face. "Not yet." The end. Don't forget to like and subscribe and press the wee bell notification. And a huge big thank you to all my subscribers, patrons and members. See you next week. Bye bye.